Masechet Sukkah, daf 49. We begin with a description of what happens under the Mizbeach. We were talking about pouring the water and wine, the nisuch hamayim, nisuch hayayin, into the drain pipe that's on top of the Mizbeach. Where does it go underneath? We'll see two different versions, two different opinions about that. And that is going to lead into a long Agadah, because we're going to be quoting Shir HaShirim here, so it's going to link into something else from Shir HaShirim regarding hidden parts. So just like whatever is underneath the Mizbeach is hidden, we talk about things that one does discreetly, namely giving tzedakah. And we're going to have some beautiful agadot about the relative value of giving tzedakah with money versus helping someone, actually, doing something physically to help out the person, which is considered even better than just helping them out monetarily. Okay, so we begin. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana amar Rabbi Yochanan shitin mesheshet me'bereshit nibreu. Shitin is the word for the drain pipes that went down under the Mizbeach. And according to this opinion, we're going to see two opinions. One, that they are God-made, and the second, that they are man-made. So the first one says, these were made by Hashem during the 6 days of creation. This would relate to the fact that Har HaBayit, we call the place, the central place in Kodesh Kodashim, Even HaShetiyah. We saw that before. It's like the foundation stone. That's the belly button from which the whole universe was created. And so this would be the hollow underneath. And so this is a very important spot, like the origin of creation spot. A quote from Shir HaShirim, where the beloved is describing his beloved as describing that your hidden thighs like a chain, handiwork of a skilled workman. So what this is all metaphorical. What does this mean? So the thighs, the hidden thighs, that's the hidden space underneath the Mizbeach. That they are hollow and they go all the way down into the depth. Tehom, another good Bereshit word, right? So there's some kind of channel that goes way down deep into the earth. Who is the skilled workman that created this? Well, it's the Creator that created during the 6 days of creation. And we can even find a cute hint to this in the word Bereshit, which we could split in two and say bara sheet. God created these shitim, these cavities underneath the ground. Okay, so when we pour the wine and the water, it's going down in there. And certainly there's a lot of symbolism and imagery there. You can imagine kind of the dirt and putting water with the dirt, creating mud. You think of the creation of Adam, maybe this hole being kind of like a womb and something like that related to creation. Certainly the reference to Shir HaShirim, and so describing the earth, we say Mother Earth, maybe kind of like a birthing imagery. Okay, so that's all very interesting, and all part of the association with Nisuch Hamayim, which after all is a way of expressing a hope and prayer for rain that will go into the earth, and then vegetation will grow. So this all works together. Next, Tanya Rabbi Yosef Omer, Shitin mecholadin veyoredim ad tehom. This braita is going to support what we just said before, that these cavities go all the way down into the depths of the earth. Shneimar, Ashira na lididi shirat dodi decharmo, kedem haya lididi bekeren ben shamin. Oh, this is a long quote from Yeshaya, his famous parable of a vineyard. The parable says, it talks about someone who made a beautiful vineyard and set it up, and everything was great, but then the vineyard just made bad grapes. And the nimshal is Hashem gave Bnei Israel every opportunity, put them in Israel, gave them everything that they need, and then they sinned. So, who's at fault here? Good. But anyway, we're gonna cite the rest of it and read it allegorically. Vayibn migdal betocho v'gam yechgeb haseb bo. So the pasuk says, I'm going to sing a song for my beloved about this vineyard. My well-beloved had a vineyard and a fruitful hill. He dug it, cleared the stones, planted choice vine, and here's the key for us, built a tower in the middle and a vat therein. So there's a vat to hold the wine in that tower underneath. So Veitahu Sorek ze Bet HaMikdash. So building that tower, that is referring to the Bet HaMikdash. Ve'evin Migdal betocho, and a vat inside. The tower is the altar. The Bet HaMikdash is the vineyard. The tower is the mizbeach. Vegam yekeb hasebo elo ashitin, and the drain pipes. Those are the shitim underneath. Those the drain pipes are the vat, which makes sense because one of the things before, besides water, is in fact wine down in there. Good. So all these are describing Hashem creating all of these items. But now we have another braita that says it's all man-made. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Sadok, Lul katan haya ben kebesh lemizbeach b'ma'aravo shel kebesh. ואחת ל70 שנה פרחי כהונה יורדים לשם ומלקטים משם יין קרוש שדומה לעיגולי דבלה ובאים ושורפים אותו בקדושה שנאמר בקודש הסך נס אחד לאדוני. So Rabbi Elazar says there was in fact a gap between the ramp and the mizbeach. Here's a picture, right? This is the mizbeach, and the ramp goes all the way up here, but there's in fact a gap between, Kohen would have to jump over this little gap, and that is actually where, it's true, they would pour it down the drain pipe here in the corner, like we saw yesterday, but that drain pipe went not underneath the Mizbeach into an underground deep hole, as according to the previous opinions, but rather it drained off to the side of the Mizbeach, between the ramp and the Mizbeach, in this 8 amot by just a little bit down in there. Okay, and once every 70 years, the children, the young Kohanim, would go down there and they would collect the dried out wine that got filled up there, and it was like a cake of figs, like a fruit roll-up after it got all dried out. And they would have to empty it out because, it goes deep, but it's a limited space. So it had to be emptied out every 70 years. So it's a good amount of space. It takes time. And then what would they do with that, jelly that they took out? They would burn it as like they would things that were holy, that were no longer usable, because it's still called Bakodesh. That libation is still considered holy. Okay, so this is entirely different. This is not an endless tehom that is underneath that was there from creation. This is right there, a space adjacent to the mizbeach between it and the ramp. All right, so now let's see some of the differences between these two opinions. So we just adding to the fact that we burn the leftovers that are stuck under there, just like when we pour it, it's sanctified. Whenever you put the wine or water in holy vessels and down in the mizbeach, it's sanctified. So too, it has to be burnt in a sanctified, like you would other kodashim. My mashma, how do you know this? Amar Rabina, Atya kodesh kodesh, ketib hacha bakodesh hasech nesech, uchtivatam sarafta et anotar ba'esh lo yachel ki kodesh hu. Here it describes the libations as holy, and also regarding meat, sacrificial meat that's left over, so you have to burn it, and it's still considered kodesh. You have to burn it in a sanctified way. So that's the comparison. The leftovers of the wine that go down in there are the same as leftovers of meat that you didn't eat in time. Keman azlaha detanya nesachim batechila mo'alin bahen yaredu lashitin and mo'alin bahen. So now we're going to test out the two theories that we just had according to this baraita that says libations, when at the beginning, they are sanctified, and therefore, if someone would take some of the wine or water that was meant to be poured onto the mizbeach and go and take it for himself and drink it, they would be hayav to bring an asham and me'ilot and pay for it. But once it goes down into the drain pipes and ma'alin bahan, then that's it. You finished doing their mitzvah, and therefore there's no longer a problem of no longer a sin of me'ilah. That's the baraita. So who would be the author of this baraita in the reference to the two opinions above? Lema Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Sadoki. Dirabanan ha nachatu lehu letehom. It must be the second opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Sadok, who says that the wine goes down into the gap between the ramp and the mizbeach, so it's still there. So then that once every 70 years, or if someone went, sooner and took some of it and had personal benefit from it, then they would be mo'el. That makes sense. According to Rabbanan, it goes down under the ground into the depths of the earth, so it can never be retrieved. So what would we be talking about? How can someone ever get benefit from something that goes down into the netherworld? But we answer, you know what? We don't want to pigeonhole the Baraita that should only be according to this minority opinion. We could say it even follows Rabbanan. Maybe someone would have caught it on the way down. For example, in this funny little picture, right? If someone would, stick their hand down or crawl in under there and put their cup and catch the wine after it went down into the drain and then take it, so they would still be mo'el. Of course, if it did eventually go all the way down to the depths, then you're right. No one would be able to get it anymore. Yeah. Question?
Yeah, this seems very similar to Masechet Yoma, with the dam goes in and it fertilizes, and there was a whole discussion about, is there me'ilah? Can they use it? Can they not?
Very good. Yes, excellent. Good memory, and that's right. We had the blood that from the on Yom Kippur from the sa'ir, and that would go down and it would go out, and then the farmers would pay for it, and then they would use it. It was kind of good luck, right? So that sounds like it doesn't go down all the way into the depths of the earth, but it is something that was usable, and we talked about me'ilah there as well, right? They have to make sure to pay for it in order to use it. Yeah, excellent. So it's interesting that we don't bring that whole discussion in here. This is slightly different. I wonder why. It may relate to the Agadah that we're going to bring in a few minutes, which relates to this idea of something being hidden. So maybe I think we want to emphasize the hiddenness of this area. But yep, great reference, great point. Now that discussion we just had, that Baraita only can follow both opinions. Here's another version of that discussion. At first we said maybe it only follows Rabbanan and not the other minority opinion. Because after all, according to the Elazar, you still have to do something with it. Even after you pour the wine and it goes down, you're still awaiting that once in 70 years when you're going to retrieve it and burn it. So you still have to do something with it. And that's why you should still be mo'el, right? That Baraita said once before you pour it, you would commit me'ilah. After it's poured and goes down, then you will not be chayav me'ilah. According to the Elazar, you should still be chayav me'ilah even after you pour it down, because you still have to do something with it. There's a mitzvah to burn it. Whereas according to Rabbanan, there's no me'ilah because there's nothing else you could do with it. It went down into the depths of the earth and you can never get it again. And so, even if you did get it, there's nothing to do. So we answer, no, there's a general principle that not just saying that once you do the main mitzvah here is pouring it onto the mizbeach. After you finish that, then there's no more me'ilah. It's true, now you have to burn it, but that's just a secondary point because it's left over. So what are you going to do with it? You want to treat it b'kedusha, but the main mitzvah is done. So there's no me'ilah anymore. אמר ריש לקיש, בזמן שמנסחים יין על גבי המזבח, פוקקים את השיטין לקיים מה שנאמר, בקודש הסך נעשה שחר להשם. So we referenced this pasuk already before. We're going to learn something else from it, which is that when we pour the wine on the mizbeach in the first place, we put a stopper in the drain. Here's a picture of a stopper in the drain, right? So we take the wine from a jug, we pour it into the basin. The basin has a hole on the bottom that goes down into this, down in here. But we don't want it to just drip down. We want it to kind of go down in one gulp. So we plug up the drain and then we open up the drain and then it all goes down at once. So how do we know that this should be the case? My mashma, amada papa, shechad. Since it says nesech shechad, it's a curious word, right? This will be a libation of intoxicating drink or strong drink, right? What's the idea? Has Shem getting drunk from this? So what do we learn? Obviously not. So what do we learn from this? Leshon shetiya. So shechad is telling us that it should be go down into the mizbeach similar to the way one drinks. Lashon sevi'ah, similar to the way one becomes satiated. Lashon shichrut, similar to the way when a person drinks and becomes intoxicated, so too the mizbeach should drink the wine in the same manner. So how is that? Amada papa shema'mina ki saba inish hamara migedone saba. So drink is different from food. Food, it doesn't matter if you eat a little bit at a time or take big bites, right? Once you have a certain amount of food, then you're going to feel full. But drink is different. Drink is you don't feel full from your stomach, but rather from your throat. Therefore, if you take little sips, you can take a lot of little sips and you won't feel full. The same amount, if you gulp it and fill up one's throat, then you will feel full because it's the liquid gives that feeling of fullness in one's throat. So here's some good advice. Torah scholar who does not have a lot of wine, right? He's not very wealthy, but he wants to feel full from his wine, so he should take large gulps, swigs of the wine, and that will make him feel full. And here's one example of a sage, Rava, when he had a cup of beracha, like for Birkat Hamazon or for Kiddush, he would take a large gulps from it and not sip it. Darash Rava, that was the same Rava we ended with. Here's a public teaching, he said. Okay, we quoted Shir Shirim before, so we're continuing that theme. And so here, Shir Shirim says to the beloved, how beautiful are your steps in sandals. Okay, I don't know what's so fancy about sandals, but maybe they were fancy sandals. Try to think today would be similar equivalent of high heels. So, right, your steps look so beautiful. This is a metaphorical reference to the steps of Bnei Israel when they go up to Jerusalem for the holiday. Bat Nadiv, that's the next word in the pasuk, the child, the daughter of a prince. Who's the prince? Bito shel Abraham Abinu. Bnei Israel are the daughter of Prince Abraham. Shenikra Nadiv. Shenemad Nadiv Amim Nesafu Am Elohe Abraham. And so now we quote a pasuk from Tehillim that talks about the princes of the nations will gather together. The people of the God of Abraham. So there's some kind of meeting or juxtaposition between the princes of the lands and the nation of Abraham. Elohei Abraham v'lo Elohei Yitzchak v'Yaakov. How come Bnei Israel here are called the nation of the God of Abraham? How about the other patriarchs? Abraham is the most important in this context because he's the first convert. In other words, he was once a prince of a nation. He was the son of a Kohen, of an important person. And he then converted and came and walked with his feet and made aliyah and came to Israel. So he is the prince, and therefore, in this context, when we're thinking about the princes of the nations, they will come and gather round the people of the prince Abraham. So here's where we see that Nadiv means Abraham, and so to here, Banalim Bat Nadiv, when Bnei Israel, when we go to Israel for a holiday, we are in a way retracing the steps of Abraham Avinu, who also left his place and went to the land of Israel. Okay, very beautiful derasha there. Tana de Rab Anan. Ma'dichtiv hamuke yerechayich. So now back to Shir Hashirim. What does this mean? The hidden, a part of your thighs. Lama nimshelu dibre Torah ki yarech. Why is Torah, again, this is all an allegory, so Torah is compared to one's thighs. Just like a thigh is concealed part of a body, so too Torah should be always in private. Okay, now, I mean, there's a certain aspect of Torah that could be public. People give public lectures. Har Sinai was a big public event. But the point is that, yes, while there's some things that are in public, there are parts of the Torah that are esoteric, that are more hidden, mystical ideas, very important things that cannot be understood by everyone. And so those are, in a way, the most precious. When especially, understanding Shir HaShirim, when one can really feel even a greater intimacy of the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Bnei Israel. Good. So it refers to hidden parts of Torah. And now we're going to relate it also to mitzvot that one does discreetly. Some mitzvot are in public, reading Sefer Torah, wearing tefillin, but some are best done discreetly. והיינו דאמר רבי אלעזר, מה דכתיב, הגיד לך אדם מה טוב ומה אדוני דורש ממך, כי אם עשות משפט ואהבת חסד והשנא לכת עם אלוהיך. The famous pasuk from Micha, which says, right, what is good and what does God ask of a person? Only these three things: to do justice, and love kindness, and walk humbly. So the humble walking, that's what we're going to get to. That's the connection with those things done in hiding. So first, asot mishpat, zehadin. So whenever you do an act of justice, you fulfill the first. Habat chesed, zo gemilut chasadim. So any act of kindness, that's the second. והשנא לכת עם אלוהיך, זו הוצאת המת והכנסת כלה לחופה. And doing things in discreetly, humbly, this refers to the mitzvah of accompanying the dead to take them out and prepare a burial, especially for someone who's indigent, cannot afford it. And so, in secret, you don't go out and put a sign, this funeral was sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Cohen. The community takes care of it discreetly. The Chevra Kadisha, they do it. And also, when someone can afford a wedding and they need help, and you go and you help them out. So even though the wedding itself is a public event, you don't put your sponsorship and talk about how much you helped. So these are mitzvot that are done discreetly, types of gemilut chasadim, but those best done with humility. So these two precisely are the things that are chosen because generally funerals and weddings are done in public. These are big public affairs. And even in those cases, if you're helping out, you should be modest about it and not boast. So all the more so if you're just giving someone food or helping them with some healthcare needs, which is private. So all the more so that should be done in a discreet manner. אמר רבי אלעזר, גדול העושה צדקה יותר מכל הקורבנות שנאמר, עשו מצדקה ומשפט נמחד אדוני מזבח. Greater is one who gives charity than someone who would sacrifice all the animal sacrifices. As it says in Mishle, doing righteousness and justice is more choice to God than offerings. So this is really bringing everything full circle, because we started with the Mizbeach and how great it is to offer the wine, the water on the Mizbeach, and all the symbolism involved in that. And yet, greater than all that is doing tzedakah. And this would be obviously a great comfort to the rabbis who are writing this, who lived after the destruction of Bet HaMikdash and still close enough to it to really feel that absence. And they may feel bad. How can we perform acts that are so great? He says, don't worry, Hashem loves your righteousness better. ואמר רבי אלעזר גדולה גמילות חסדים יותר מן הצדקה שנאמר זרעו לכם צדקה וכסרו פי חסד. And now we're going to compare the doing acts of kindness, which are better than giving charity with money. As it says in the pasuk in Hosea, zir'u, that means planting for yourself tzedakah, But kisru is to reap chesed. So what's better, planting or reaping? Reaping, right, is better. Then that's when you know what you're going to get. Planting is just, I hope that I'm going to put the seed and I hope that it will come to fruition. Im adam zoreya, sefek ochel, sefek eno ochel. Adam koser, vaday ochel. When someone plants a seed, maybe it's going to have food, maybe he won't. You never know. But when you are reaping, then you know for sure that you have reward, that you're going to get something out of it. So the same idea here is here. If you give charity and you try to check to some organization, who knows where it's going? Is it half going to overhead? Is it a good organization? Did they lose it? Even if you give money to a person, is he spending it on cigarettes? Well, you never know where it's going. But if you actually help a person and you give them a meal, you help a person cross the street, then you know that you had a positive effect on that person and the world. And so that is more like reaping, which is even better. We learn in addition from that same pasuk that the charity is only paid in accordance with the kindness that is within it. In other words, if someone sends a check to some place and it turns out to be a corrupt organization or gets lost in the mail, did you fulfill charity? According to this, maybe not. You have a responsibility to make sure that whatever money you're giving actually helps people. You can't just say, oh, I wrote a check, right? I put some money in some box and that's it. I fulfilled my obligation. The obligation isn't to give money. The obligation is to help people. So, make sure to track down and choose your charities wisely and be involved in knowing where your money is going. תנו רבנן בשלושה דברים גדולה גמילות חסדים יותר מן הצדקה, צדקה בממונו, גמילות חסדים בין בגופו בין בממונו. And on the same theme, there are three ways in which acts of kindness are even better than monetary giving, which is that monetary giving can only be done with money. Gemilut chasadim, you can do both with your own body, yourself, and with your money. So if a person isn't very wealthy and they don't have a lot of money to give, okay, but a person can volunteer and go ahead and help people and help someone get them to a doctor's appointment, right? There's a million ways that anyone can help another person. Furthermore, monetary charity, you only give to poor people. Only a subset of the community can you help. But acts of kindness, that you could do for anyone, both poor and rich. Rich people also need a kind word, a helping hand, some good advice. And so there's more opportunities for Gemilut Chasadim. Tzedakah lechayim, Gemilut Chasadim ben hayim ben ametim. Tzedakah, you can only give to those who are alive, whereas an act of kindness, you could do both for the living and for the dead by helping to bury someone. Good. And more on that theme, anyone who does both charity and justice, he fills the whole world with kindness. If someone loves charity and justice, so the world becomes filled with Hashem's chesed. And now you might think, you know what? It's easy. I can just go ahead and jump to any opportunity to go and help people. Not so easy always to find a good opportunity that really helps someone. The rest of that same pasuk, which says, right, how precious is your chesed Hashem? No, it's a different pasuk. Okay, how precious. And the Peshat means, I appreciate Hashem, your chesed that you do for us. But here we're taking it the opposite way. How precious is an opportunity to do chesed? Sometimes you want to invite a poor person to your home for a holiday. Not always easy to just find someone. You can't just walk out your door and save someone's life. You have to go and actually look for opportunities to help a person in a real substantive way. How about for someone who's Yireh Shamayim? Someone who's God-fearing, that person, the kindness of Hashem is everlasting. They always have opportunities to do good. So maybe the idea behind this is, someone who's Yireh Shamayim, makes himself open and available to helping others. Sometimes a real opportunity to help someone in a significant way is only once you have a relationship with a person, and they know that you're God-fearing and that you are sincere, and that if they open up to you and say, I really need help with this and that, then that gives you an opportunity to help them. So, if someone is kind of closed off and not attuned to opportunities to help people and not a trustworthy person, then people aren't going to necessarily turn to them. So becoming Yireh Shamayim is also a way of saying that one becomes involved in people's life, shows that they're caring, shows that they are sincere and L'Shem Shamayim, and that opens up doors to being able to do even more kindness to others. אמר רבי חמא בר פפא, כל אדם שיש עליו חן, בידוע שהוא ירא שמיים, שנאמר חסד אדוני מעולם ועד עולם על יראיו. So the same pasuk, we learn something else. Anyone who has a certain grace about them, you see them and they just kind of smile and have a brightness to them. You know that they are also Yireh Shamayim, because it says Chesed Hashem. When they do Chesed, then it is on them, on Yira'av. That glow is God's presence upon them. V'amar Rabbi Elazar, מה דכתיב פיה פתחה בחוכמה ותורת חסד על לשונה וכי יש תורה של חסד ויש תורה שאינה של חסד. What does this mean regarding the Eshet Chayil that says she opens up her mouth with wisdom, and there is a Torah of kindness on her tongue? What do you mean a Torah of kindness? Is there a Torah of kindness and Torah of not kindness? Ela Torah lishma, zohi Torah shel chesed. Shelo lishma, zo Torah she'ena shel chesed. When Torah is learned and taught for its own sake, just for the love of Torah, then that is a Torah of kindness. But when it's learned for another sake, when someone is being doing it for their own glory, or because they're being paid for it, or some other external reason that they are doing it, then that is not a Torah of Chesed. It's not done with kindness and love. Zohi Torah shel chesed, shelo lelameda, zohi Torah she'ena shel chesed. Or another opinion is when Torah is studied to learn, to teach, that is called Torah of Chesed. But when it is not taught to teach, when it's not learned in order to teach others, then it's Ena Shel Chesed. The idea here is that when you learn only for yourself, it's kind of selfish, because I like to know, I like to learn these things. But when you're teaching others, not only is it Torah, but you're also sharing it with others, helping inspire, helping give that gift of Torah knowledge to others, uplifting their lives as well. So this is a way in which one can combine both Torah and doing kindness for others by teaching Torah. May we all have the merit to both learn and teach Torah always. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.